It's Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, joining you today from San Diego County, joined by Denise Gitsham. She is a candidate for the United States Congress representing District Number 52. I'd like to speak with you about our sense of security, domestic security. We're not far from San Bernardino, where we had the December 2nd tragedy. Orlando is still on our mind. As you're out and about talking to constituents, are you hearing concerns about domestic security?
I sense, well, first of all, thanks for having me on,
Of course.
You know, I sense that there's a general sort of feeling of anxiety, and it transcends not only our domestic security issues, but also our international, where we stand in the world, and also the economy. There's so many areas in which we really do have a sense of insecurity. And, you know, I'm maybe particularly sensitive to it because I worked for President George W. Bush in the White House on 9/11.
You did?
I did.
I need to interrupt. Can you take us back? I mean,
I
grief.
can.
Where were you?
It's a life-changing moment. I think everyone remembers where they were
but
on
still,
9/11.
working for the White House. Were you in Florida with him, or were you?
No, I was in an old executive office building on the 5th floor,
right
on the White House
And
complex.
we just had the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
I want to take 2 minutes to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that day and how it informs you as you run for Congress. It has to be a huge impact.
It really was. You know, I went to the White House really not knowing what to expect. And I was so young, 23 years old. And I guess I had a sense that there was an importance to this election, but I didn't realize how important it was until that morning. You know, I remember every minute of that morning. And I also, when we were evacuated, we were evacuated before the Hill was because they weren't certain where the plane was going. You know,
and I have to tell you, I mean, I'm no genius, but I got to think the plane that went down in Pennsylvania was heading to the White House.
You know, no one really knows, but they weren't taking any chances, thank God. So we were evacuated, and I remember the SWAT team.
Where'd you go?
My car was in the Ellipse, which is where all the staff park.
Okay.
And so I just remember walking out with my 2 interns in tow, poor things, and the SWAT team guy looking at me and looking at this guy, and he said, "Ma'am, take your heels off and run. Get away from the building as quickly as you can." And so immediately I knew there was a real sense of insecurity with respect to our physical safety. I got to the Ellipse, I got in my car, and then I drove very slowly past the burning Pentagon to get home.
Come on.
Yeah. And so I had a real up close and personal sense, but I also had so many friends that were working in or around the Twin Towers. And so that day changed my life in a way that made me doubly committed, triply committed to making sure that we never allowed that to happen in our state or our country or, you know, our homes ever again. That is my top priority, is ensuring our physical safety. And that includes the safety of our interests abroad.
Right. But you know what's interesting? I feel as if over the last 15 years that the United States government, through both administrations, has done a fairly good job in thwarting planned attacks that are filled with lots of operatives like 9/11. But it's these lone wolf attacks that are so hard to ferret out. San Bernardino, Orlando. It goes on and on. And it's not just those that are part of the radical Islamist ideology. I mean, there are domestic terrorists that don't come from overseas. These are tough, these lone wolves.
I know. Vigilance, constant vigilance. You know, we can't stop every attack from happening, but there are measures that we absolutely can take to make sure it's a lot more difficult.
So let's presume victory. What can you do as a member of Congress to try to be vigilant? You said it. We can't stop everything. But can Congress take steps?
Absolutely. Congress right now is trying to address steps because President Obama has proposed that he wants to close Gitmo. It was one of his campaign promises.
This is the small portion on the island of Cuba where there are some folks that want to do harm to us that are incarcerated.
They've been labeled the worst of the worst, and the folks that are left, that are remaining there in Gitmo, include Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was one of the masterminds of 9/11. And so we have good reason to want to keep them there. Unfortunately, the current Congressman, Scott Peters, has voted 9 times to close Gitmo and relocate those who are there either to third-party countries or to our own district here in San Diego.
It's complicated. I mean, there's no question. But the question becomes, and I want to ask you this only because of what happened recently at the presidential debate, with regard to no buy, no fly. The Republican nominee, Donald Trump, said he supports no buy, or no fly, no buy. Whereas many Republican members of Congress have not been in support of that.
I think
So
this-
have you
yeah.
decided where you are on this issue?
You know,
of lay-no-buy?
it's an important question, but it's not the most important one, because we love to get into the weeds about, sort of things that we have the luxury of talking about now because we're physically secure. What we need to focus on right now is making sure that we are keeping the bad people out and keeping a lot of bad people from getting guns. That's a first measure, right? No fly, no buy.
Right.
It's a first filter. There are true due process issues with how people get on that no-fly
Right.
list in the first place. And I completely understand those issues. But
You're a lawyer.
yeah, exactly. We
You're a
both
lawyer.
are. Yeah.
Right, we both
and
are.
so I understand that
Right.
there are real issues with not being able to get off and not being able to justify or understand how you got on that list in the first place.
Wasn't there a senator on that list? Or I'm feeling
Yeah,
like
there's a
say-
lot of people that
Right,
you wouldn't expect to
right,
be on that
right.
list. So there's an issue, but does that mean that we don't use that as a first filter?
Mhm.
I think that's a reasonable, common sense
okay.
first filter.
Apparently,
to
Mr.
determine.
Trump does too.
Right.
Right,
I
the
mean, I think
Republican
most
nominee.
people do.
Right.
We do have to be very focused on making sure that due process is observed and followed when it comes to these issues.
Let's talk about the economy.
Sure.
Because I really feel as if, Denise, that it's been the best of times, it's been the worst of times. It's a tale of two cities.
So true.
And it's hard because, here we are in San Diego where there's a lot of success, but there's homelessness growing. And it's common throughout the nation. Talk to me
know.
about that kind of tale of two cities.
People feel like they're not able. There are times when I felt that I'm not able to get ahead because government is in the way of my success. I believe government's job is to get out of the way where they don't know, in the areas that they're not best at. And one of the areas they've proven that they're not very good at is managing our money and our resources and our businesses and our schools and our communities. Government at the local level is great, very responsive. You see 80% approval ratings of local elected officials. That's
Right.
phenomenal.
Even Sacramento, the state legislature, I
Way
think,
better.
broke 50
Yeah.
for the first time ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Congress, elected and unelected officials in Washington, 3,000 miles from us, we are as far as you could possibly get, except for Hawaii. And
Right,
Alaska.
right.
They just don't know as well as we do how to manage our lives and our resources.
I'm glad you brought that up because, look, we are one nation.
Right.
And so, at some levels, we want to kind of have a base
Right.
of standards. But look, Maine and Michigan are different. California and Kentucky are different.
So different.
And so how do we kind of get a base, but yet not not overregulate?
I think the best way to do that is to understand that we should elect leaders that really want to put the power back in our hands. This
Local.
election comes down to something very basic for me when people ask me, what is this really
Right.
about? at
And
the
why
end of
are
the
you
day?
doing this? I wanted to
Yeah,
ask you that.
it's
Why
a
are you
good
doing this?
question.
Right.
But, it really stems from my philosophy, which is that you either trust, as some people do, that government is the best decision maker for your lives and your communities and your businesses and your schools and how you run your lives and where you give your money and where how much ownership they have in how you run your life. Or you believe, as I do, that we trust ourselves and our neighbors and our community members to make those decisions for ourselves. We know best what's good for us.
So why are you doing this?
That is probably the second most asked question that I get.
Why are you doing this?
This election to me is about national security and the economy.
We talked about it.
And those are the two issues that I'm most passionate about, both as somebody who lived through 9/11 and worked 6 years in the Bush administration on national security issues at the Department of Justice, and also as a small business owner. I know how hard it is to thrive, and I want to employ as many people as possible, reinvest in our community, grow our tax base. I want to thrive because that means I can help other people thrive. And I don't think Washington's doing a good job of it. And if Congress's approval ratings at 15% are any indication, I think that anyone who's part of that problem can't be part of the solution.
Her name is Denise Gitsham. She is a candidate for the United States Congress, District number 52 in San Diego County, where we are today. I'm Brad Pomerance. Look.